welcome everybody. I'm Sandra Moran, Chief Marketing and Customer Experience Officer with Workforce Software, and I am so excited to welcome Steve Goldberg. Steve, in preparing for this, I feel like we're becoming friends as well as enthusiasts for organizational change management. But I'm really excited to have you talk about this subject with me today. And let me just introduce Steve. He is a 30-year HR veteran. And what distinguishes him to me is that he has both been in the shoes of an HR practitioner. He's also been in the shoes of an HR tech provider. And Steve, I think your unique position as an HR analyst gives you a purview into organization change management that many people don't have. That's why you were my first choice, our first choice for software to join us for this discussion. And I'm just super excited to welcome you. What I'd love to do is just have you give your perspective on why organization change management is so important, especially in this context of HR digital transformation.
I'd love to, and thank you very much for having me, Sandra, and Workforce Software. I love working with the team there. Welcome, everybody. All right, so what are we talking about? OCM, Organizational Change Management. We're really talking about moving a team, a department, a business area, or an entire enterprise from a current state to a desired future state. And as Sandra just alluded to, so that's normally in the context of a transformational program or exercise that tends to be fairly structured. So if you think about HR transformation, it could be any of the processes that fall under the HR human capital management umbrella, or it could be kind of linking them all together in a more holistic way. But when we think about change management and why it's so difficult, and why am I saying it's so difficult? Well, I'm just going to kind of read the headlines to you, because they're indelibly etched in my mind. I've been reading these for 30 years. Companies like, big consulting firms like McKinsey and BCG and others, they've been recording stats along the lines of roughly 1/3 of all large-scale transformations, certainly including HR and HR tech transformations, underperform or fail to create value. And kind of the big culprit that's always identified and highlighted is inadequate attention to change management.
You had some really great 5 practical tips on making sure that your organization change management project goes as well as can be expected. And I'm going to start with one of them that you taught me, which is really acknowledging and addressing challenges. And you've talked a lot about not being able to anticipate all of the things that you may run into, and really planning some time in there to learn, hear the challenge, and address that challenge before you just keep moving on. And I appreciate also your commentary about, getting in touch with the anxiety that somebody might feel about the change. Do you want to add anything to that, planning for and addressing change in an organization change management project?
Sure. So let me first address anxiety. So, in all seriousness, in my 30 plus years, I've been fortunate to work among all levels of people, certainly, including all educational levels, PhDs and lots of MBAs when I worked on Wall Street in HR. And you know what? At the end of the day, almost everybody exhibits some signs of insecurity when there's change. Most people, let's just go with the foundational principle that most people, as I said before, it's the neuroscience of change. The brain doesn't like change, and people, in terms of their current situation, unless they have all the answers and know how the job is going to change, how the career path is going to change, there's going to be some insecurity, i.e. Anxiety. So again, candor is really, really important. And people should not feel, either intentionally or unintentionally, feel like they are actually not up to the task because they feel some discomfort and anxiety. It's human. It's totally human, no matter what level you're at. So acknowledge it, get it out there, talk about the opportunities. Yes, some career trajectories may change, and there's as good a chance, better chance than not, that they'll be changing for the better. So let's all go through the journey together. As far as one of my other themes I'll mention is there tends to be an kind of an overemphasis on the outcomes, which is good. I mean, that's why we're doing the change in the first place. But don't let it be at the expense of emphasizing the dependencies to get there. And we've already been talking about some of the dependencies. It's almost like a universe of dependencies. There's quite a few dependencies. You have that kind of the human level dependency, and that's emotions, but it's also, do we have the right people in the right place at the right time with the right skills? And do we have the support from the people that are most important to have the support from? That's really important. Is there anything going on in the organization that's going to disrupt or interfere with what we're trying to accomplish here? And here's another one that's often overlooked. What if you have some people that have been around for 5 years or 10 years or more, and they've heard we're embarking on a change management program. They've heard that story before, and maybe didn't come out the way the organization or they personally thought it was going to come out. So those are all dependencies. I mean, the organizations that can really think creatively and in a very transparent way communicate around all those, they're the ones that come out to do better. So those are two. I think you had another one that I think.
Yeah, I do. And I think that is planning for short-term wins, like specifically sprinkling into your project, especially a long-term project where you get some change fatigue, plan some short-term wins, plan to celebrate those short-term wins, plan who you pick as your spokesperson. If it's always corporate, if it's always the project team, you can plant some people that are influential, that people trust and believe, to also help you in your change management journey to really communicate some short-term wins. It's important to not just the first go live or the first instant, but the realization of benefits that people may not feel for some time.
Plan and celebrate. They go together. Also understand that there's very few successful change programs that have been totally linear and predictable. There's going to be some surprises. If that's going to throw the team into a state of being dysfunctional, that's not going to work. And so just address it at the beginning. There's going to be some surprises. We may make a left turn or a right turn because we're going to be collecting data along the way. Right.
Yeah.
So this is new for our organization, and it's while it's a structured approach, it has an element of experimentation. But in the end, we do believe, and this is the last point I'll make, oftentimes in the process of selling change to build support, we're not acknowledging the resistance that's totally natural. It's a human trait to resist change. So and it might be very logical. In terms of how it affects a particular person. So my kind of antidote to that is twofold. Acknowledge that there's legitimate reasons to be apprehensive. But if you look at change from a net change perspective, and you, in your communications to the organization, you go through that kind of talk track of, we do acknowledge that there may be some inconveniences. What's an example? It'll take you 2 weeks to learn the new technology. Or we're going to be moving around some people in some roles. And there'll be some training, which is probably going to be beneficial in the end for a lot of people. But we understand that there's a little bit of give and take. Look at change from a net change and from a net benefit perspective. I think it's a really important lesson that I learned. I believe the outcomes of a change management program need to be owned by the whole enterprise. And when when there's this sense that it's only owned by this small group, or it's only going to benefit this one area, or anything along those lines, it to me, that reflects that this principle has not been emphasized enough. Not just the outcomes are owned by the enterprise, but the blueprint and the journey has to be owned by the enterprise. I know that sounds maybe a little cliche, but think of it like I kind of articulated HCM. At HR, as a department, is around 1% of the organization. How can they own maximizing people for competitive advantage? Employees, line managers, people managers, everybody owns that. And similarly, the change coalition team is only a small percentage of the organization. It has to be owned by the enterprise.
And that is so poignant to me, especially as it relates to this particular area, workforce management, managing your workforce, dealing with the personal aspects of that, especially in an environment where a lot of the power that used to be owned by the company is now shifting to employees. And I think even in that statement, Steve, there are so many great lessons for people to take away from this discussion in who thinks they own that problem. You take something, especially as like a deskless worker, let's take a manufacturing environment. The operational leader believes that they own that relationship. They're there to cultivate it. They're there to maximize productivity. And HR may have a completely different view of how you achieve that versus an operational leader. But boy, the magic happens when those unique perspectives are brought together to generate the best ideas about the ways to go about dealing with all of the aspects of the people that are ultimately involved in change management, getting to their why, their purpose, why the change is going to be beneficial to them, and articulate it in a way that they can feel that they had some say in it is so important to their buy-in in order for these tactics to work at all. So thank you so much again for sharing your great insights and some of these tips to make change, the process of change, for organizations to reap the benefits. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sandra.